All right, everybody hear me okay? These are the brave souls that decided to stay here and listen to my talk. Thanks for sticking around. My name is Scott Wray. I belong with the EVA group, Extravehicular Activities. Before I get into my talk, can I get just a quick poll? Who is in the room that is not associated with NASA? Awesome. Okay, great. So I'll have to be careful with my NASA acronyms. I'll have to be careful with my NASA acronyms. So anyways, like I said, I'm with the EVA group, that's Extravehicular Activities. It's basically a fancy way of saying spacewalks. I was one of the founders of the EVA Wiki, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our history, some background of how why we started our wiki, and then get into one of the creative solutions to really get our usership up, and that's meeting minutes. Okay, so a brief history of really what it is that we do within my organization. And I'm part of a division called Flight Operations. And to put it simply, what we do is we plan, train, and fly. That's kind of our motto: plan, train, fly. We plan human spaceflight missions, we train astronauts for those missions, and then we execute them, or we sit in mission control, MCC, while the crew members are on the space station executing whatever it is we planned. In my case, would be a spacewalk. So NASA, that directorate of flight operations is made up of about 20 different groups, and I know we have representatives from several of them here today. Lots of different groups that make up different systems of the space station. To run the International Space Station takes a lot of different experts and different groups that help run the space station. Like I said, EVA is the group that I'm part of, fancy way of saying spacewalks. And NASA has been evolving throughout its history. MCC, I've got a couple old photos here. Back in the Apollo era, we used slide rules, plotters, and computers the size of half this room probably. And as we've evolved through the technology, so has the way that we manage our knowledge management. And it began papers and folders and typed documents. We still have archived binders of photos from the shuttle era even. And that grew to basically gigabytes of data in electronic folders. So that's our problem. How do we organize this? How do we access this data quickly and keep it from going stale? So what NASA mostly uses, at least in flight operations, is directory trees, like a Windows-based directory system. We use shared drives. Obviously, everybody has their own personal laptop. They may be keeping data on there that's important to them or whatever projects they're working on. And this leads to multiple copies and versions of documents, and we don't know which one do we trust, right? We end up with duplicate data. Things get copied and moved, and basically your organization is only as good as the folder structure that you started with. And even that can change. Somebody could decide they want to create another folder within a folder and put their documents there. So everything gets disorganized quickly. Also, files can be easily moved and even deleted. We've lost archived information on a space flight because it was moved or inadvertently deleted. So these are all problems that you have when managing a knowledge management system. So we decided to try out the Wiki way. It's been kind of apparent, everybody has talked about their Wiki today, and search is a big part of a successful Wiki. We search for our data as opposed to sorting for the data. And not just file names, but we want to be able to search the content. I want to be able to dive down into a document and actually pick out words in that document if it's important to me. And a wiki can do this, whereas some of these older knowledge management systems struggle. You also want a single portal for this information, one single main page, a landing page where you can start and see everything all at once. What's important to me may be different than what's important to you, and you want that main page to be your launch pad to explore the wiki. You also want automated revision control, and probably the most powerful part of our tool, of our wiki, was this semantic linking. We use the semantic extension to MediaWiki, and this allowed us to create a lot of really powerful properties and to interlink our data, which made it much easier to organize. So an example, at least for my group, in the spacewalk group, there's different hardware associated to do our job. There may be a special tool that an astronaut uses on a spacewalk, or a special component that they're going to repair on the space station, and it's going to have a specific part number, a mass, a dimension. It's also going to have, we can store these as semantic properties, and it's also going to have associated drawings, maybe some wiring schematics, diagrams, anomaly reports. If a component or a tool has a history of maybe it didn't function right one day when we tried to use it, we want to keep track of that historical data and that information so that in the future, as we reuse that tool, reuse that piece of equipment, we understand its history and we can troubleshoot it properly. Also, we want to be able to link any compatible hardware. A ratchet wrench is going to need ratchets, or a ratchet wrench is going to need sockets to go on it. So we want to be able to tie all of our sockets to our ratchet. Things like this. We want to relate components. And these can automatically be linked via part numbers or just the page name, the hardware name in our wiki. And that's how we began to kind of tie all these components together, which in the past, you'd have to deal with this file structure, a parent-child relationship in a more Windows-based system. So this did require a culture shift within our org. Change is really hard. If you ever tried to make a change in your organization, especially one so sweeping as a knowledge management system, it takes a lot of buy-in. And that was our biggest hurdle, was really convincing first our management, and once management got on board, then we start bringing in the rest of the group, the rest of our users. So in order to do this, to get our management to buy in, we needed to create a proof of concept. Every 2 years in my group, we have to go through a proficiency training. And that's just so that we can stay certified, stay up to date on all of our, what it is that we're teaching the astronauts, all the rules, all of the documents. We have to review them every 2 years so that we can perform our job safely and accurately. And so as we were creating this new wiki, we decided, as we're studying our proficiency documents, let's import them in to the wiki, and we'll build up that critical mass so that we can actually have a working demo. We went semantic. Like I said, this extension, semantic extension for MediaWiki, after we installed it, it was incredible how powerful it was and how it linked all of our data together. In fact, it shed light on some of the holes we had in our data. We could very easily see where information was missing. All these years we had documents and manuals of how to do something, and here's this major hole. Once it was imported in our wiki, it was more obvious that we were missing that information. And we even found conflicting data, maybe two documents that were previously perceived as being official. Well, maybe they said the same thing, but they said it differently, and that causes confusion. And so when we imported that data into the wiki, that came to the forefront, and it was obvious, hey, we need to decide which one of these is accurate. It allows you to vet your information better. So we really couldn't find any other software that came close to this power. We tried different things. SharePoint, we still use SharePoint quite a bit for a document repository. Confluence, we tried Confluence, and other wiki forms. But MediaWiki with the semantic extension was the best fit for our organization. So once we got that critical mass, we presented our demo to management, and it was very powerful. They were definitely excited about what it could do. I think a little bit intimidated and scared as to how we were going to roll this out. And one thing, ironically, was that there's a little bit of a double standard. The wiki makes things so easy to edit, so easy to share, and the content is much more easy to access, that then they question it. It becomes a negative. can this be trusted? Can anybody get on there and change this? Well, yeah, but we can control who can get on there. So it's kind of this double standard. Yes, it's a great tool, but now it's almost too easy to see the data. Whereas previous knowledge management tools like SharePoint or shared documents, they had the same vulnerability, but it was a lot harder, right? I call it security through obscurity, right? So we had the same control access issues as before. Now it's just easier to manage on the wiki. So that was a hurdle we had to get management comfortable with, how we could manage that properly. So the wiki does make it easier to discover all these disconnects in our knowledge management and to present the data and have version history tracking. Who knows if you have Word documents in a folder, which one's the latest version? Sure, maybe one was opened and saved, but do we know that that data is the latest data? So those were some of the issues that previous knowledge management systems had. So demonstrating value. We were able to prove that the wiki provides a single source of information, reveals gaps in our knowledge, and the last thing here is probably the most important, and it's something we're still struggling with today, is this concept of our wiki. When we had our breakout groups, this also came up. Previously, in other ways that we manage knowledge management and data, maybe John over here creates a document through Word on a project they're working on, and James over here creates an Excel document, and Mark over here creates a PowerPoint, and they put this out on a shared drive, and the group can access that information. But maybe James is intimidated he doesn't want to change Mark's document because Mark authored it. That's his. I don't want to edit that. That's his content. He created it. Or what if it's inaccurate, or if it's stale, it's out of date? So this concept of our wiki is something we want to encourage, that once you put the data on the wiki, it's not everybody's. It's everybody's to use, it's everybody's to share, and everybody is just as responsible to edit it and update it and make sure that it's vetted properly. You may not be the expert on information that you put in there. We even have interns and co-ops will type up an old manual, put it on the wiki, and then we'll flag some of our experts to go in there and update it, make sure it's up to date. So you want everybody involved, and you want this concept of our wiki to be one that everyone really utilizes. So we started to also integrate other tools within our wiki. Imagery is a very big thing here in flight operations, and we use the NASA Imagery Online system. It's a huge institutional database where we have imagery from space flights, from missions, from spacewalks, and it's rather large. There's probably over 100,000 videos. These numbers are actually a little bit out of date. 2 million photos, and the collection is about 10 terabytes and growing. Basically, every photo that's taken by an astronaut in space is put in this database. So it's a huge, useful database of photos, and for somebody who works in flight operations, it's really important for me to have access to that database. So we wanted to integrate this imagery database into our wiki, and to do it in a way where we didn't have to leave our wiki to do it. You don't want, every time your users leave your wiki and go to another site, you've kind of lost them for a little while, right? So we want them to be able to access that really good data, those great photos, and do it from our wiki. So we were able to tie into their photo database, and we built queries so that we can organize these photos using the NASA ID. Every photo is given a NASA ID number, and so we can use that to our advantage, and we link to them directly through our wiki. Users can also upload images on their own that they may have taken, but since there's thousands and thousands of images taken from space, we want to be able to access those too. So this is just an example of a page that we created, a very simple query. And this is querying EVA tools. So we have created pages for all of our EVA tools, and this gallery basically uses the semantic properties and pulls all of their images to one page so we can quickly see a photo gallery of all of the EVA tools. And this wasn't possible in the Imagery Online database. If I searched EVA tools in there, I'm not going to get this result. So that was something that we found important. We want to be able to customize the data. The next thing we did to help add data to our wiki so that it was usable for our group was adding mission history. So we created pages for each of the ISS and shuttle missions. We added data, semantic properties for all the crew members that were involved on those flights, all the flight controllers that worked on those missions, and any relevant hardware or tools, any anomalies associated with those. So, and that's all data in the past. So by importing it, we knew it was going to remain stagnant, at least for a while. That data is not going to change. And then hopefully our experts who may have worked those missions can go back in and add more detail. And we can create this query once that data was in there. And this query, it's about 6 lines. Sorry if you can't see it in the back. But basically, I'm just asking the wiki for pages with the category expedition. Expedition is what we call a 6-month stay on the space station. Search for pages category expedition, and there's a question mark here. Give me all the commanders, and then display that in a table. So this is what we get. We get a nice, elegant display of a table. On the left column, it's expeditions 1 through, and the list got cut off. We're at 19. And then the second column is all the commanders, starting with Bill Shepard, our first commander, all the way down. So just with 6 lines of code, I was able to search all of our data and pull up a simple query like this. So that's great. That's a nice, simple query. Here's something a little bit more complex, inventory management. It's probably one of our biggest problems now that we've been operating the space station for over a decade, and that is stowage and inventory management. We actually have an entire group dedicated to that. They're called ISOs, Integrated Stowage Officers. So you can see on board, this is an old photo of Don Pettit, lots of bags and things like that. So anytime an astronaut moves a piece of equipment on space station, there's somebody whose job is to track that and make sure we all know where it was put so that we can find it again in 6 months maybe when another crew member needs that piece of hardware. So very complicated problem. And we wanted to integrate this into our wiki somehow. So the ISOs use a parent-child relationship and basically similar to a folder structure to document all these items. This is what their tool looks like. This is called the IMS client, and it's a software tool that they built specifically for their needs. And it's a really powerful tool. On the right, I know it's very hard to see, but on the right, basically you can start, it's like a file structure, parent-child association. We start off with a particular module on the space station, then we go down to a section of that module, and then down to maybe a bag, and inside that bag is maybe another bag, and then maybe a Ziploc bag with something else, another item. So we can search by the part number, we can search by the part name or the component's name. Really powerful tool, but it's very cumbersome for maybe somebody in my group who just needs one little piece of information. I just need to know, are there 3 ratchet wrenches on the space station, and where are they? So I need a little bit more basic information. So they did create a web tool, which is a little bit simpler. You can see there's an EVA ratchet here, and its current location is airlock 1, overhead 0 behind a closeout. So that's a particular location coding on the space station. This was great, much better, a little bit more simpler. I don't have to open up their client, log into it. It's less cumbersome. So we actually added this to one of our tool pages. So all of our tool pages here, this is the EVA ratchet wrench page. Looks very much like a Wikipedia page. On the right, we have our info box. We have a photo of the tool. This is a ratchet wrench. And we have a part name, part number. And then over here, we have links, and the top link is IMS. And by clicking on that, I don't have to search in their IMS. It immediately takes me to the page showing me the results of where this tool is located on space station. So it's a real easy solution to integrated inventory management. We took it one step further, and we built this script using some wiki markup. And this is kind of an add-on. We're still testing it out. We're not really fully adopting it yet. But basically, I can just type in #IMS : and then put the part number. I can even put the part name. And then it'll display that same parent-child relationship. So this example in bold, it's highlighting there are 4 ratchet wrenches on space station currently, and 2 of them are in the same location, and then the 2 others are in separate locations. So this was great. We were able to tie in directly to their database. So once we built up, we added all this data into our wiki. James, myself, and Darren, at the very beginning, really before we launched it through the rest of our group, we had all this data in the wiki, and you can't just go to your management and go to the rest of your coworkers and say, okay, go forth and wikify, edit the wiki, and do good things on the wiki. They don't really have a need to. Okay, that they're going to just use it, they're not going to actually contribute. So we needed a way to get our users involved in the wiki, and that's where we came up with this meeting minutes idea. And Darren mentioned a little bit earlier in his pitch, but we also say how we stopped emailing and to love the wiki. So the segue for that is email. We can't do our jobs without email, but there is an awful lot of email that we send every day to each other. And it's great for communicating, but it can be abused. I don't think, personally, email is a terrible way to store data. If you've ever sent really important information to a coworker in an email, 2 weeks later, you can't really expect them to find that, especially if their inboxes are as crowded as ours are. So we're trying to get folks to not use email to archive data. It's a terrible way to archive data. You don't want to have to dig into old PST files to find a piece of data. Instead, it should be put in the wiki. So we figured people go to meetings. Kind of the old standard was you go to a meeting, you take your notes, and you send an email, and they figure, okay, the data's been sent out to the group, I'm done, I don't have to do anything more with it. Well, that doesn't help us. We need to be able to access it later. So that's where the meeting minutes came about. We can't eliminate email, but maybe we can get rid of some of it. So our meeting minutes template is very simple. It has the meeting title, the date, the time, the person who's taking the notes, the attendee, any links to documents or slides that may have been shown in the meeting, and then we have topics. So as different topics occur in the meeting, you can create a separate section. This is what the meeting minutes form looks like. It's a very simple user interface. It's really no harder than filling out an email. We have all these forms here for you to fill out. Like I mentioned, the meeting name, and then down here we can add file with this blue button, and then we can add topics here at the bottom. This is what the topic section looks like. This particular topic says safety tether routing. And then we can put the content of that topic below. And you can use our wiki markup tagging. So I can by putting 2 square brackets around a particular word or phrase, that'll tag it as a page. So we can now link all of our meeting notes to other wiki pages. So if somebody's reading your meeting minutes and they don't know what a particular thing is, if you've linked it, they can click on that page just like you would in Wikipedia. This is what a meeting minute output looks like when you save the page. Again, we have an info box over the right that has the title of the meeting. This was a group meeting, the meeting date, time, and the person who took the notes. Bulleted lists is kind of a popular way that folks take notes. We're trying to get away from that, but hey, at least we've captured all the notes here. So this was great. We got the notes in the wiki, but what can we do to improve it? So these can be entered by anyone. They're linkable. They're accessible online. And we can link to wiki articles, like I said, using the wiki markup. But are they searchable? When we first created it, we tried a test search here. Over on our wiki, we just typed in meeting minutes and then RET. RET is an acronym, NASA acronym. It stands for Retractable Equipment Tether. So by searching meeting minutes RET, we didn't really get the results we were expecting. So we needed to add a property. we added this property called related articles, and we use the markup has type page. And what this does is in our meeting minutes form, there's another line right below our topic title. And in this line, you can enter any page name and separate it by a comma. So this particular meeting had to do with safety tether routing. And the EVA we put on here is US EVA 26. So there was a spacewalk performed, and safety tether routing was a topic in this meeting. So what this does now is if I were to go to a particular page, it will list in the meeting minutes all the related articles that were tagged for that topic. So now your section of meeting minutes have topics that have been tagged to it. It gets even better. So if I were to go to the retractable equipment tether page, and if I scroll down to the bottom, we created this footer section. And the first tab in our footer is meeting references. So if the retractable equipment tether was tagged as a related article in a particular meeting, it's now going to show up on the bottom of our retractable equipment tether page. And these are all the meetings listed in chronological order. And we just show the first 10. And if they want to see more, they can click on a link there. And this was done really easily. We used the extension header tabs. This was an extension out there in the MediaWiki forums. And we could query the meeting topic by just using the page name, as I said, using the page name for related article. So it's a really simple query here. We're just saying, show me all topics from meetings where the related article is the same as the page name. And then show me what page that came from, what date it was, and give me a synopsis of that meeting. And that'll show up on the bottom of that content page. We applied this same logic to, this is one more thing we've done with manifests. So we applied the same logic to manifests. And manifest is basically when anything is launched on a spacecraft or returned on a spacecraft, and we create a manifest. So a manifest is just a list of cargo. Over here on the right, we have the 53 progress page, a Russian cargo vehicle, and we have this table labeled manifest, and we've listed all the retractable equipment tethers that are launching on 53 progress. And if I were to go over here to the left, this is the retractable equipment tether page underneath the manifest tab. Due to our related articles property, it now shows up in the manifest tab. I didn't have to enter this information. It is automatically populated there through the semantic property related articles. We also did this for EVA references. So over here on the right, this is a page that represents a Russian EVA performed during Expedition 38. On that mission, there was maybe a damaged retractable equipment tether, and we noted that over here in the info box. And then again on the retractable equipment tether page, it has that reference. So you can see how this works. We created different categories in our footer that all use the related articles. We also applied this to OCADs. They're operational constraints. That's just a NASA speak for rules. We have a lot of rules so that we can keep our crew members safe, our equipment from getting damaged. These are all rules that we have to follow so that we can do our jobs properly. So as I'm preparing for a spacewalk, it's important, as I'm developing a spacewalk, it's important that I understand all the rules that we need to follow so that our equipment and our crew members come home safe. So this is another category that we put in our footer of rules, and they're just labeled ISS OCAD 19222. That's one particular rule. So we took that one step further. Since we entered all the rules that apply to our tools and hardware in our wiki, we created this compound query. The first column here on the far left, these are locations on the space station. So if I'm, as an instructor, if I'm developing a spacewalk for an upcoming crew member, I can plan out the spacewalk. And over here in the left column, I'm going to select all the locations on space station that crew member is going to work from. Maybe even all the locations that they are going to go past. They're going to translate past. And then in the middle is applicable hardware. So these are all the tools or all the boxes or widgets on the space station that they may be handling or touching. And then on the right is a little bit more of a generic category, things like cables, bags, foot restraints, so a more broad topic. So with this query, I can highlight all of the items that are going to affect the spacewalk that I'm planning, and then I run that query. When I run that query, it's going to use the semantic properties to spit out this table, and these are all of the rules or OCADs that I need to learn or to teach my crew member so that when we perform our spacewalk, we're following all of the rules that the safety community has spent so much time developing. So typically in the past, this was a lot more rigorous way to, we had to really search for all these rules. We had to go to previous EVAs, search different safety documents to find all these rules, and search a really cumbersome database. This query is kind of a double check and make sure that we aren't missing any rules. So exposure is important for getting your users to really explore your wiki. A lot of pages can get missed. They don't visit it. Maybe they don't even know they exist, even if it's a page that's important to them. So exposure, there are different ways that we can tie these pages together. Obviously, the easiest one is wiki links. You can link on a page, and that's good, but that only does so much for you. I've showed you several examples of semantic queries, both inline queries like the searching for all the commanders of the expeditions, the info box queries that we can do there, and also what we've done with our footer. And then finally, user queries. We can create more complex compound queries like the one for the OCADs or the rules. So how can we better ensure that our users are aware of pages that they might be interested in? And this is a challenge that we're still trying to crack today. So there's this concept that we learned at a previous seminar, wiki seminar, from Brandon Harris. He's from the Wikimedia Foundation, and he described wikis are Warren-centric. You have this idea of warrens and plazas. And Warren-centric is where each page is basically its own small disconnected community or a silo. And that's kind of what you're always fighting against in a wiki. How do we get users to view all the pages that they care about, even if they may not know they exist? So we need to connect all these warrens. If Darren, myself, and James populated the wiki with a lot of data, a new user doesn't know that all that data exists unless there's a useful way we can tell them that it's out there for them to view. So that's where our main page plaza came into play. Let me zoom in on this here. This is just an overall view. Over here to the right is our meeting minutes. So meeting minutes is this yellow block that you see on the page. We use an extension called Masonry, and basically it just sorts these different blocks on our main page. So if you resize your browser, it kind of organizes them neatly and in a nice priority. And we put different relevant blocks on there that we thought users in our group would find useful. So the first one is meeting minutes. This block here, it links the first link there at the top if they want to add new minutes. Maybe they're at a meeting right now and they want to write new meeting minutes. So they can do that by clicking there. The next section there is a meeting that's currently happening right now. So it says this meeting happened today. And then we chronologically list the meeting. So our users can open up the main page and quickly read through some of the meetings. This gives you a synopsis of the meeting. It's the first few hundred characters. If they click on the link to the meeting, then they'll get the actual full brief from the meeting. It allows you to digest the material at your own leisure instead of flooding your inbox with all this information and then you're not sure what's important to you. You have to sort through all your email. We also added featured articles. This example here, it says SSU. SSU is a sequential shunt unit. It's just a component on the space station that helps run the power through our solar arrays. And last year we were having some difficulty with it. It kept tripping, and so we were having to troubleshoot it, and possibly, well, actually we did a spacewalk to go fix it. But at the time we weren't sure if we were going to have to do a spacewalk. So we highlighted this as a featured article on our wiki to get our users in our community and other folks that use our wiki to get out there and read up on the SSU, because it was something that was very pertinent to the EVA community at the time. So this was put on the main page, and we can flag any article as being a featured article. Also, current issues, we have a box that kind of bullets all the different issues that are important to the EVA group, the spacewalk group, and we can change these as we solve them. We can take them off of the list. And this is just using a simple query of category current ISS issue. So any page I can add it to that category, and then it'll be flagged in this box. Upcoming events. This is probably one of the most frustrating parts of being in flight operations is our schedule. Our schedule is constantly changing. We're at the whim of launching of vehicles and any issues that those different vehicles may have getting ready for flight. So dates are constantly changing. So we have this upcoming events that we can hopefully keep everybody up to speed as these different launches happen. So we've got all of our cargo vehicles and even EVAs, spacewalks that we have planned are listed here in this box. Eventually, we may like to include major training events or IVA activities. IVA is any activities that are happening inside the space station. Being in the EVA group, we mostly are concerned with what's happening outside the space station. We also have recent discussions and changes. So you want your users to not only work on different areas of the wiki that they may be interested in, but you want them to be informed as to what are other users working on, because maybe they're working on something that I have a say in. So the thing on the box on the left here is recent changes, and this just highlights pages that have changed recently. And we can also see any new pages that are created and review your watch list. As we mentioned, watch lists are pages that you've highlighted and selected that are important for you to watch. On the right is recent discussions. We do use the talk pages on our wiki. It really helps for sidebar conversations or to work out any issues. If there's data on a page that isn't cited well, or maybe two members of our organization are disagreeing on it, they want to have that discussion, we can have that discussion on the talk page, and then once we've resolved it or we've come to a solution, we can move it over to the content page, and it keeps it all right there so that everybody can see it and contribute. And it's not just in an email chain between those 2 or 3 people. The entire organization can see it if they so choose. So I did mention proficiency training. One thing that we figured we'd throw on the main page is a random OCAD, a random rule, a random caution. A caution is another component that we have to keep up to date so that we're training our crew members properly. And we figured, well, every 2 years we have to stay up to date on all this information. What if you digested one of these items every day or every couple days? Wouldn't it be neat if you could kind of check those off through your proficiency training? We don't currently do this, but maybe it's something we can implement in the future, that you can sort of chew through your proficiency training more on a daily basis instead of on a 2-year basis. Right now we've shrunk it down to a quarterly, so it's a little bit easier to manage. So maybe in the future we could track who has read a random OCAD and clicked on it, and that way we can check that box off the proficiency training, and now they've retrain themselves on that particular topic. So the idea behind this whole plaza, this main page, is to change the morning routine. You come into work, you have your coffee, you pull up the wiki page, the main page, and you review the meetings. These are all the meetings that have happened this week or in the last few days. Maybe I'll look at recent changes, check my watch list, and then once I've done all that, then I'll go to my email. And now I'm already informed as to kind of the state of the union of our group, and now I can digest my email a lot more quickly and more efficiently, and I'm not having to dig through data in an email. So this is kind of our dream We're getting there, but that's what we're trying to do with this culture shift, this new morning routine. So this way, email is more focused on discussions and collaborating between people and communicating, and less on documenting technical info. So in the future, we would like to suggest, in fact, we've actually implemented this, James presented it earlier, but suggested watch lists. Just like Amazon suggests when you purchase a bathing suit, it'll also suggest, hey, you might want a beach towel and some flip-flops. We have the same concept with our suggested watch lists James presented earlier. And it's really done a great job in getting our users more involved in pages that they didn't think that they would be interested in. Something we may try out in the future is making the main page more customizable so that it's catered exactly to your needs. Right now, we try to cater the wiki mostly to our organization within EVA, which is about 40 or so people. But we do have folks that may be interested in a certain area of our department than another. And so we may want to cater some of those content pages and highlight them so that we can get them to view them and vet that material. And then lastly, like I said, we have posted these extensions on GitHub. Both our meeting minutes and the Masonry main page is listed there. Darren created that Masonry, and here's our contact. So with that, I'll take any questions you have. Thank you. Yeah.
So you had to work with other people to get APIs into their systems to extract data for full storage?
Yes. Yeah. So for IMS, James met with folks over there, and we were able to pull into IMS a little bit. Imagery Online, we basically just use the link in their hyperlink. Every image has that NASA ID, and conveniently their hyperlinks use the same NASA ID. So we're able to more easily pull that in. But there are other databases that we use, things like anomaly reports, flight rules, things like that, where we're hoping to reach out to those databases and play with them more friendly.
So when you look for a tool, it makes a real-time call then to the IMS database and then returns the result to you?
Yeah, so we do search. Yes, we can search through IMS and get that data. There is I don't know if you saw it, there's a disclaimer that says, don't use this. This is not used for real-time flight decisions. We would like to refer to the official tool. But what it does do is it gives us a quick answer so that we can kind of get a rough idea of what the inventory is. And if it's a crew member calling on space station, we're going to use the official tools for it. So it's still a work in progress for the IMS.
Scott, do you think is the majority of the data that's currently being entered onto the wiki being done through forms, through semantic forms, or are people also creating individual pages using just standard wiki markup?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. What we did from the very beginning, we were able to break down a lot of our content by like tools, EVAs, missions, vehicles. So much like how you explained in your pitch, we tried to create templates and forms for those big major categories. But still, even every day, somebody might come up and say, hey, I'm working on this project. It's not a mission, it's not a vehicle. I want to make a page on it. And so examples like that, we will just kind of let them get started. Say, hey, why don't you tell us what it is you think you might want, and start making the page, and then we can massage it into something else. So I would probably venture to say over 50% of our pages are probably templated or using forms, just because we want a more uniform look. But we do have a lot of pages out there that don't quite shoehorn into that template, and that's something we're still having to develop.
The OCADs, the source of those OCADs, is there a group that puts them into the wiki form?
So there's an actual OCAD database that reaches beyond just EVA. There's OCADs for all sorts of disciplines on space station that the safety community works with. mission assurance and safety, and they create all of these OCADs based on reports. And we basically took just the ones that were pertinent to EVA. We pulled them out of their database, and we had to manually input them into our wiki. So, yeah, for that part, we put them in. Once they're in, though, we only get a few of them every year. It's not something we're constantly going to get a lot of them. So we think at this point we can manage it, and we've actually put it into our process of where we approve or disapprove an OCAD. If there's one that it goes through an approval process, and we can send folks the link, say, here's a link of the OCAD in our wiki. There's also a link on that wiki page that takes you to the actual database if you want to see it in its original content, and that way we can kind of track if those are approved.
How about the notes, cautions, and warnings?
Same way. We imported all those, and there are still some that we still need to import for notes, caution, and warnings. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys very much.